Thanks so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Today is the day Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to address Congress on the issue of Iran. The speech is intended to strengthen Congress's hand in pressing for tougher sanctions against the country. But coming in just 2 weeks before Israeli national elections, it's turned into a highly contentious issue, both at home and abroad. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell has the story.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's on a mission for the sake of Israelis and Jewish people around the world. He also wants to ease any tension with President Obama.
My speech is not intended to show any disrespect to President Obama or the esteemed office that he holds. I have great respect for both.
Netanyahu told the pro-Israel lobby AIPAC that Israel should always be a bipartisan issue. And while he didn't give specifics of his speech, he talked about the dangers of Iran.
Iran envelops the entire world with its tentacles of terror. This is what Iran is doing now without nuclear weapons. Imagine what Iran would do with nuclear weapons.
Although Netanyahu continues to insist his trip is about Iran, political rivals here charge it's a ploy to get more votes in the upcoming national elections. Others are concerned about the impact on U.S.-Israeli relations.
The more the Israeli government is being seen as more supported by one party in the United States, it is damaging the relationship.
President Obama refuses to meet with Netanyahu, citing the upcoming elections. National Security Advisor Susan Rice called the speech destructive to the relationship, and some Democrats in Congress are likely to boycott the address. But in Rice's address to AIPAC, the hostilities seemed to disappear.
Israel's security, our mutual security, is also at the heart of one of President Obama's most important foreign policy objectives, ensuring that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon.
Still, Middle East expert Joel Rosenberg says politicizing the speech overshadows its mission.
The president wants this deal to go through, and Prime Minister Netanyahu is probably the only person on the planet that has the standing to persuade people to be against it, both as a nation and as congressional leaders who have oversight of it.
The agreement would allow Iran to continue enriching uranium, leading to quicker development of a nuclear weapon.
Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech in Congress has critical importance for the U.S. national security, Israel's national security, and global sanity due to the lethality of the nuclearization of Iran.
Ambassador Yoram Ettinger says the agreement could awaken terrorist sleeper cells in the U.S., disturb the world's oil supply, and perhaps lead to nuclear war. Israelis have mixed reactions about the speech.
He's our leader. I think that most of the Israelis believe in Bibi Netanyahu, and he's a leader. He likes America.
I think he shouldn't, because it's election time. Elections coming soon, and I think it's a political move.
I think he has the right to do that, and I don't know why they do make such a big story about that. I don't get it.
Ironically, Jews around the world celebrate Purim this week. It marks events in the book of Esther, when God saved the Jewish people from annihilation by wicked Haman in ancient Persia. That's modern Iran. It remains to be seen if Netanyahu's speech will have any influence on the U.S.-Iranian negotiations or this month's Israeli elections. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Twitter headquarters in San Francisco is on high alert after an online post claiming to be from ISIS threatened its CEO and its employees. The threat appeared on the website Just Paste It with a picture of Twitter's CEO, Jack Dorsey. It calls on jihadis to kill Twitter employees in retaliation to the social giant's crackdown on terrorist accounts. ABC News reports Twitter has closed at least 2,000 accounts linked to ISIS. The FBI is investigating those threats. Iraq has launched a major military offensive against ISIS fighters. Thousands of troops backed by Iranian forces are battling to retake the birthplace of Saddam Hussein from ISIS. The operation comes as one Muslim author warns of the terror organization's apocalyptic ambitions. George Thomas has more in the exclusive details.
80 miles north of Baghdad, 30,000 Iraqi troops backed by Shiite militia and members of Iran's elite Quds forces are taking part in a large-scale military operation to retake the city of Tikrit. The ultimate goal, recapture Iraq's second-largest city of Mosul from ISIS.
These weapons are prepared for the Islamic State, the rats. We will crush them in Tikrit, all over Tikrit.
The operation comes as ISIS continues to kill, capture and raid towns and villages in Iraq and Syria. Asra Nomani, a Muslim feminist and author, warns that to view ISIS as just another rational military group is a huge mistake. In an article for the Daily Beast titled, "Will it take the end of the world for Obama to recognize ISIS as Islamic?" Nomani says the president is completely wrong for not calling the terror group what it is.
I believe it's really important to know your enemy, just a quote from the Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu. And to really understand the Islamic State, you have to look at the motivation and the theology and the ideology that drives them.
Nomani has spent hours studying the videos and writings of ISIS. She told CBN News the group believes we are living in the end times and that their actions are hastening the moment when the Islamic apocalypse happens.
The Islamic State is very much Islamic because it validates its theology based on the Quran, the Hadith, the sayings or traditions of the Prophet Muhammad, the fatwas of scholars through the ages, and finally, this last thing called eschatology, or the science of end times, according to Islamic beliefs.
She points to a moment last month when 21 Egyptian Christians were beheaded in Libya. In a video released by ISIS, the main executioner says the beheadings are part of a self-fulfilling Islamic prophecy and that soon Jesus, along with the Mahdi, the so-called Islamic savior, will return to earth for the judgment. Nomani says ISIS is trying to draw the West into a war as part of this prophecy.
In this case, with the Islamic State, they're very much trying to create a war that will lead to domination as they see it. And we have to really try to understand that if we really want to try to fight them effectively.
Nomani has gotten a lot of death threats from Muslims for her writings against Islamic extremism, but she doesn't scare easily. She says she's on a campaign to educate Americans about the threats within her own faith.
In 1940, America was faced with a very serious question about whether we were going to call out Nazi Germany for the persecution that they were inflicting upon people in their country. We made a decision to finally take a stand regarding Nazi Germany. And in the same way, I believe that right now in 2015, we are in a position where we have to call out extremist Islam for what it is.
George Thomas, CBN News.
An Australian pastor is warning Americans to wake up to protect their culture from creeping Islamism. Denny Nalaya runs Catching Fire Ministries. He recently told CBN chief international correspondent Gary Lane that the West's embrace of multiculturalism may lead to its destruction.
Danny, there are many Christians in this country who don't want to appear as being intolerant or not supporting religious freedom. How should we handle and address this situation here in the United States?
I think the clear demarcation is this. We all disagree with Nazi ideology, but we love the German people. We do not approve of communist philosophy, but we love the Russians and the Chinese. We do not agree with Islamic teaching. So stand up for your country. Say, people come into the country, embrace our way of life, embrace our culture. If you have a problem with that, tough luck, mate. You've got to get back to where you came from.
And you can watch that full interview by searching for the Global Lane blog at cbnnews.com. The Islamic terrorist group Boko Haram has beheaded 2 men it accuses of spying. The Nigerian group posted a video of the brutal slayings on Twitter. The site intelligence group says the video shows hallmarks of ISIS propaganda. Boko Haram is apparently trying to copy the Islamic State's slick recruiting videos, and they recently stated on social media they might swear allegiance to ISIS. Well, up next, you probably already know too much sugar is bad for you, but avoiding it might be harder than you think. We're going to show you which foods have some hidden sugar inside. Police arrested more than 400 parents in northwest Pakistan for refusing to give their children polio vaccinations. They were jailed this weekend under government orders and charged with endangering public security. Pakistan police say those who were targeted were not arrested if they agreed to vaccinate their children. Pakistan is one of 3 countries where polio is epidemic. This is the first case of such widespread arrests. Skim milk, balsamic vinegar, you would think those would be healthy, but a growing number of so-called healthy foods actually contain a great deal of sugar. As Lori Johnson shows us, it's hidden in places you'd never suspect.
Americans devour a shocking amount of sugar. Many of us consume a cup of sugar a day. That's double what Americans ate 100 years ago. All that sugar can be deadly. Dallas oncologist Gerald Edelman, author of Sugar Rehab, says that's because sugar stimulates cancer cells and causes weight gain.
We know that folks that are overweight have a higher risk of recurrence of cancer and also developing many of the major cancers. So obesity is actually now known to be a direct cause of cancer.
John Speenberg had Hodgkin's lymphoma, cancer of the blood. After following Dr. Edelman's advice to slash the sugar, he lost weight and has been cancer-free for 9 years.
I love yogurt, but when you start realizing there's 9 grams of sugar in a cup of yogurt, I started cutting out my yogurt.
And it's not just cancer. Sugar leads to many other health problems, from heart disease and high blood pressure to the common cold.
High blood sugar is an immunosuppressant effect. It suppresses your immune system. So you're more vulnerable to infections such as the flu. You're more vulnerable to inflammatory diseases such as arthritis.
Sugar's highly addictive. Brain imaging shows reward centers light up the same way when a person takes cocaine as when they consume sugar. And it's tough to get off that roller coaster.
Because you're going through spikes and valleys of blood sugar levels. And when you're at a valley, what's your body want? It wants more sugar. Your body loses its natural equilibrium of, intelligently telling you when it's hungry and intelligently telling you when it's full.
If you want to cut back on sugar, here's a tip. It's often hidden in foods that seem healthy, like this instant oatmeal. It has 12 grams of sugar, compared to old-fashioned oats, which have just 1. Nutritionist J.J. Virgin says hidden sugars are why so many people have trouble losing weight.
What I think is most upsetting is all of these people trying so hard to eat healthy, yet being duped by misinformation, because then they just go, wow, this isn't working, I'm just going to give up.
In her book, she warns about going after low-fat foods.
When we started to pull the fat out of products, we either add or are left with sugar. If you look at a lot of the dairy products, especially like cream cheeses, we'll go to the light cream cheese and they actually added sugar in.
Many fat-free salad dressings are 1/3 sugar. And don't be fooled by healthy-sounding words like fruit or juice. They're often just the super sweet fructose left over after healthy fiber and nutrients have been removed. Dried fruits can contain as much sugar as candy.
And there's easy ways to say no sugar added and still put it in there. Apple juice concentrate's the worst thing you could possibly have. Apple juice concentrate's got more fructose than high fructose corn syrup does.
Refined carbohydrates are deceptive because while not tasting sweet, they turn into sugar after you eat them because the grains have been stripped of the good stuff, leaving only the starch. Even whole grains and foods labeled all natural often contain lots of added sugar. The same goes for muffins, bars, and popular protein shakes. This one has 44 grams per serving. You should aim for less than 2. JJ divides foods into high, medium, and low sugar impact. For example, white potato is high, sweet potato is medium, pumpkin is low. White rice is high, brown rice is medium, wild rice is low.
A marinara sauce with sugar added is high sugar impact. A regular marinara sauce, medium sugar impact. Crushed tomatoes, basil, olive oil would be low sugar impact.
And what about fake sugar?
One of the worst things that's ever happened to us are artificial sweeteners. This is a science experiment that has not worked.
Researchers found people who use them tend to gain more weight.
But there's also a phenomenon that happens called calorie dysregulation that they saw with artificial sweeteners. When you eat something that's got a sweet taste with no calories, your body can't calibrate the degree of sweetness with how many calories, so it causes you to tend to overeat.
They can also cause headaches and digestive problems.
You have to limit some of these sugar-free products because they have sugar alcohols in them, and sugar alcohols can act as laxatives.
The best advice is to be aware and just say no to sugar in obvious places as well as the hidden ones. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
And still to come, this couple adopted an embryo 15 years ago. Well, now she's all grown up. She'll explain what it's like to be a snowflake baby. The Indiana State Senate has passed a new bill that bans abortions based on gender, disease, or risk factors for a physical or mental disability. Many pro-abortion people oppose the bill, but pro-life forces are celebrating, like Patty Shaw, who learned her daughter had Down syndrome when she was 5 months pregnant.
There were family and friends who, were scratching their head and saying, what are you going to do? And to me, it was like, what do you mean, what are we going to do? This is our child. This is our baby.
Katie is now 29. She works, she participates in a half-dozen sports, and she's an advocate for her peers. Numbers from nonprofit Down Syndrome Indiana show more than half of all babies with genetic disorders in the U.S. are aborted. Katie's mom says this new bill will give babies like her daughter Katie a chance to show the world what they have to offer. Thousands of embryos left over from fertility treatments are frozen in storage labs and clinics across America. They're usually donated to science or destroyed. But as Caitlin Burke reports, a Christian adoption agency is offering another option, a chance at life.
Welcome to the Nightlight Christian Adoption Agency, home to the Snowflake Program.
The Snowflake Program is an embryo adoption program that allows people who have embryos in frozen storage to offer those embryos to another couple for adoption.
When a couple chooses to freeze their embryos, they're stored in cryotanks like these. There's no limit on how long an embryo can be frozen. Some have even been stored for more than 15 years and still resulted in successful pregnancies. John and Marlene Strieg became the first couple to adopt an embryo through the Snowflake Program.
We feel like we honored God because we did adopt an embryo that already existed. We had nothing to do with her creation. She needed a home. We needed a child.
3 adopted embryos were transferred to Marlene on April 11, 1998. On December 31st, Hannah was born.
When I saw her, I just thought that she was the most beautiful baby I'd ever seen.
Now a healthy and happy 15-year-old, Hannah learned about her unique story at an early age.
She was about 5 and in kindergarten, and they were planting seeds. My mom had bought this package of seeds, and she planted them and froze them, and she's like, that was you. You were frozen. You were a frozen seed, and we put that seed in my tummy to grow. So she had that visualization and visual concept of a seed and how tiny a seed is, and she was so tiny. And I used to say, and only God could see you. You were so tiny. And she used to say, Mommy, tell me that part of the story again. Tell me about how tiny I was.
Come, Lord Jesus, be our guest.
Once you have your child, all the pieces fit together. And you're going, oh, that's where my child was at.
On average, 1 snowflake baby is born every 10 days. Still, there are a very limited number of people who know about frozen embryo adoption, and the number of embryos going into storage continues to rise.
We believe that life begins at conception, which means as soon as the embryo is created. And for many of these, or for these embryos, they've been placed in frozen storage, and that process of developing, being born, growing into adulthood, has been halted and interrupted.
Tom and Annabelle Peterson wanted life for their extra embryos. After years of trying to get pregnant, they were successful with in vitro, and then blessed with a surprise.
Our firstborn was Andy, and we had him in 2007. So after that, a year after Andy was born, I found out I was pregnant.
After the birth of their second son, Lucas, the Petersons decided to stop trying to conceive. But God had other plans.
So a year later, after Lucas was born, I found out I was pregnant with Louisa. So in 4 years, we had 3 kids.
Still, 6 of Tom and Annabelle's embryos remained frozen. After much individual prayer, they decided together to donate those embryos for adoption.
It would break my heart knowing that I was giving up on the child and letting go of the child, and it broke my heart. But then I realized, and it just came to me, is that that's my selfishness.
It's almost like I heard a voice, or call it a conscious thought, or God speaking to me, they're not yours, Annabelle. And that thought just came to my heart, and it just gave me such peace.
God matched Tom and Annabelle's donated embryos with parents that could give them life. Meet Amos. He's biologically the Petersons, but his parents are Bert and Karina.
They're just wonderful people. Oh my goodness, they're so happy, and just seeing them with that child and just knowing what they're experiencing, and it's just beautiful.
Amos's parents agreed to an open adoption, so Tom and Annabelle are able to watch as he grows. You have so much joy and so much peace from your decision, but is there still some pain?
When he gets old enough and sees that, he realizes that that's not his biological dad, and he's going to go, well, who's my real biological parents? And if he has this thought that, like, his parents don't love him, didn't love him, and they gave him up, it's like, I think about that, I'm like, that hurts. It's so far from the truth. Because I love the kid so much, and it's not even, I'm not the father to the kid, but I love him so much, and that pains me that he might experience that.
Tom and Annabelle say that just as with the children they gave birth to, they've always loved their embryos. And it's because of that love that they chose to give them life. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, San Diego, California.
A family in El Salvador has hope for a future now thanks to Operation Blessing. Arlie was struggling to care for her children after her husband passed away 3 months ago. Her 8-year-old son, Brian, had to quit school to help care for his younger sisters while she went to work. Operation Blessing helped Arlie set up a business making tortillas from home. She's now able to watch her young daughters so Brian can return to school. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to its website, ob.org. And that is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Thanks so much for watching. Make it a terrific Tuesday, everybody.